We got
Recording in progress.
Volumes down. Record call to order the Woodland Park Planning Commission for Thursday, March 28th, 2024 at 6:30 PM. Karen, would you call the roll?
Vice Chair Brown,
Here.
Don DeZellem,
Here.
George Jones is out. Ken Kennedy,
Here.
Larry Larson,
Here.
Don Hoyne,
Here.
Cole Middleton,
Here.
and Chair Hartsfield is out this evening.
Right, in the absence of regular chair, I'll be acting as chair for this evening. We do the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America,
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And with respect to the minutes provided to us, does anyone have any comments or questions or amendments or a motion to approve?
I need to make a motion to amend them. My name is misspelled on the vote.
We can make that correction, sir.
Alrighty.
Would anyone like to move to approve the minutes with the correction of the spelling of the name DeZellem? The vote near the bottom of page 3.
I will move to approve with the amendment.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
I
Passes unanimously. All right, let's move on to public hearings now. First item, Kings Crown Final Plat, request by Terrence and Fadil O'Malley, applicants and property owners for final plat to plat 11.3 acres onto one lot. Subject property is located east of the intersection of Ponderosa Way and Kings Crown Road in sections 19 and 30, T12S, R68W of the 6th prime meridian, lying in the center of the Paradise Estates filings 3 and 4, Paradise Ranch Edition, in the suburban residential SR zone. This is a QJ matter. Does the staff have a presentation on the?
We do. Thank you, Chair. Again, this is a request of a final plat of 11.3 acre parcel to create one buildable lot. The subject property is located within the top of Paradise Master Plan and is accessed off of Kings Crown Road. The property is zoned suburban residential, as seen here on the slide. As the subject property is located within the top of Paradise Master Plan. In 2005, the City Council approved the amended top of Paradise Master Plan, which encompassed 197.7 acres, showing 175 lots and allowing up to a total of 190 lots within the SR zone district. The left-hand side of the slide is a snapshot of the master plan, which encompasses several subdivisions, including Forest Edge Park 4th Edition, Forest Edge Park first filing, Thunderbird Estates, and Paradise Estates filings 1, 2, 3, 8, 9, and 10, and Haven at Paradise. On the right-hand side of the slide is the subject property and how it was planned in 2005. It was originally planned for 8 residential lots, but has never officially been platted. As a reminder, in regards to process, in order to construct a building on a property within the city of Woodland Park, the parcel must be a part of an official subdivision. The subject property was never part of an official subdivision, and this is what the applicant is trying to achieve. The first step of that process is a preliminary plat, and that's what you see here on this slide. The City Council approved the preliminary plat on January 4th of this year. As stated, the applicants are requesting for a final plat approval for a one-lot subdivision. This slide is the final plat exhibit, which outlines the property lines of the one-lot subdivision labeled Kings Crown subdivision. Staff reviewed section 17.20 of the municipal code, which outlines the requirements for final plat. All provisions on this slide comply, and a full analysis was included within your staff report. Consistent with the requirement of city code, the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board reviewed the proposed final plat at their February 7th, 2024 PRAB meeting, and they unanimously approved the Kings Crown final plat with no recommended conditions. The application was referred to all parties here listed on the slide. The application and this hearing was noticed within the Pikes Peak Courier, and all abutting landowners within 150 feet were also mailed a letter. Staff only received one comment throughout this process, and it was from the City of Woodland Park Utilities Department, and they stated that they approve of this final plat. Staff's recommendation is that Planning Commission recommend to City Council approval of the Kings Crown final plat to plat 11.3 acres into one lot. This concludes my presentation. We also have the applicant, Mr. O'Malley, here with us tonight. If you guys have any questions for myself or him.
Okay, before the applicant speaks, any initial questions for staff? Would the applicant like to speak?
Yes, just that my wife and I have
Mr. O'Malley, if
Step
you
up to the
just-
lectern so we hear you and give your name for us. And address.
Hi, I'm Terrence O'Malley, Terry. I live currently at 1141 Royal Oak Court with my wife. She was unable to attend. She's recuperating from a car accident. But we have lived in a number of different places and fell in love with the mountains when we were in North Carolina, South Carolina. And these are the real mountains. And we moved here because we love the town, we love the mountains, and it's also brings us closer to our kids. So we really just want to build our forever home up on top of Kings Crown there. It's a beautiful view of the mountains, and that's all we want to do. And hopefully we'll be good neighbors. Any questions?
All right, no question. Is there anyone who signed up for public comment on this? Anyone else in the room wish to comment? We have anyone online with their hand raised?
We do not.
All right, if that's the case, then I'll close public comment. This provides an opportunity for the applicant to rebut any comment, which there was none. Any further comments from the staff?
We do not have any further comments.
Questions from commission? I just had one area I wanted to clarify something. The subject came up when this matter was previously done for the preliminary plat. I see there's no recommendation here to amend the master plan. How is the master plan affected by this?
This was originally slated for 8 lots. So they're obviously being platted into, or the desire is to plat those into just one large lot. But it didn't impact any other other parcels in the surrounding area for that master plan. So because this was kind of its own piece, you know, by itself down there. So
For completeness, should it be amended or does it simply stay as it is and the overall master plan gets 7 less spots?
that one.
Okay, no, I just-
No, you said it very succinctly. Yes, it did. Everything else remains as it was. And there's potentially 7 extra spots hanging out there. But, you know, nobody's standing here going, we want those. You know, at least not at this juncture. But yeah, this still is, you know, in conformance with what was originally looked at for the area. It's not like we're changing uses. So
It obviously doesn't conflict with it, it's lesser. Thank you. All right, if there's no other comments, then we have a motion. There's a recommended motion in our packet at the end of the staff report. Someone would like to work from that.
I'll move that the planning commission recommended the city council approval of the Kings Crown final plat to plat 11.3 acres into one lot.
Second,
I'll second.
any discussion? We have a vote.
Certainly. John DeSalem,
Yes.
Ken Kennedy,
Yes.
Larry Larson,
Yes.
Don Hoyne,
Yes.
Cole Middleton,
I'll abstain.
and then Lee Brown.
Yes.
So motion passes.
Thank you. Thank you.
Sounds like the motion's approved 5-0 with one
Yes.
extension.
Yes.
Abstention. Excuse me. All right, the next item on the agenda, item B. PUD 2024-02 and SUB 2024-01. Pines at Stone Ridge PUD preliminary plat extension. Request by Kevin Cofford, applicant, and Craig Boyle, Go Beyond LLC, property owner, for approval of a 2-year extension of the approved Pines at Stone Ridge portion of the Stone Ridge Village Plan Unit Development, and a 1-year extension of the approved Pines at Stone Ridge preliminary plat for 49 townhomes and 20 patio homes on 9.01 plus or minus acre tracts located southeast of Ridgestone Drive and Research Drive, zoned PUD, legally described as tracks A and F, Stone Ridge subdivision, portion of sections 12, 13, and 14, T12S, R69W of the 6th PM in the city of Woodland Park, Teller County, Colorado. This is a QJ matter. For the staff presentation?
We do. Thank you, Chair. Again, this is a request for an approval of a 2-year extension of the approved Pines at Stone Ridge portion of the Stone Ridge Village Plan Unit Development and a 1-year extension of the approved Pines at Stone Ridge preliminary plat. The subject property is located southeast of Ridgestone Drive and Research Drive as seen here on the vicinity map. The original preliminary plat for this development, Pines at Stone Ridge, was originally approved with uses allowed for a total of 77 dwelling units with 58 apartment units and 19 patio homes. In 2022, the applicant applied for a PUD amendment to allow for townhomes instead of apartments. And it was an integrated design with 20 patio homes and 49 townhouses intermixed. 2 entrances from Ridgestone Drive and an internal road that loops through the property, and the open space was changed from a linear strip on the perimeter of each tract to a larger central area with several smaller areas and trail connections. Lot sizes for patio homes are a minimum of 3,581 square feet, with the average being 4,672 square feet. Townhomes have a minimum lot size of 1,862 square feet with an average of 2,452 square feet. The anticipated building footprints are 2,185 square feet for patio homes and 1,287 square feet for townhomes. This application was approved by Planning Commission on April 14th of 2022. And on this slide here is the approved final development plan. The current request from the applicant is to have a 2-year extension of the approved PUD master plan and a 1-year extension of the approved preliminary plat. I would also like to mention that on January 16th of this year, 2024, the City of Woodland Park Planning Department issued a grading and infrastructure zoning development permit for the subject property. While a permit to begin grading and installation of the infrastructure has been issued, construction has yet to commence. The application was referred to all parties here on the slide, and staff received no public comments. If the Planning Commission finds that the extension is warranted and recommends that City Council grant the 2-year extension of the plan unit development and the 1-year extension of the preliminary plat, with the note that approving resolution should clearly state that the development is still subject to all conditions and dimensional standards specified with the original approval. This concludes my presentation here tonight, and we also have Craig O'Boyle on Zoom tonight, if you guys have any questions for him.
Initially, does anyone in the Planning Commission have questions?
I do.
So in doing the research and looking at the municipal code for planned unit development, the code's very clear on a limit of 2 dwelling units per acre. This is approximately 7.5 dwelling units per acre. Furthermore, the code, it gives some very clear situation where the planning commission can recommend, what's the word they use? Dimensional standards. But it seems clear to me that it does not provide us the latitude to exceed the 2 dwelling units per acre. So as my understanding, this is not compliant with a planned unit development. But however, it seems to fit perfectly within a multifamily residential suburban. So that would seem to be the appropriate zoning for the desired use of this property.
No, that's a great question. So how that works is, so this, the density is approximately 7.6 dwelling units per acre. So this subject property is 2 tracts, tracts A and F. So just on those 2 tracts, it's 7.6 dwelling units per acre. But the whole planned unit development, Stone Ridge Village, it has to consistently have that 2 dwelling units per acre as a whole planned unit development. So Karen just pulled up on the screen. This is a snapshot of the preliminary plat and, master plan for the whole Stone Ridge Village PUD. So it's a pretty large swath of land. So this whole PUD has to keep that 2 dwelling units per acre. So when it was originally approved, or the PUD amendment was approved in 2022, even with the 7.6 dwelling units per acre on those 2 tracts, the overall PUD still has the 2 dwelling units per acre max.
And so looking at this screen, I don't know if you can see my mouse or not, but I'm up here in the kind of upper right corner. These are the 2 tracks we're talking about that had this density in place as part of the overall plan for apartments and patio homes. And the PUD itself extends all the way down through here. There's this other spot down in here. And then it also encompasses Meadowwood Park, that was all part of this land area. So it's through, and I forget the exact number of acres, because I had your thought months ago, maybe even a year ago when I was first processing the application. I think it would have been 2 years ago. This application, it's like, how do they get there, at 2 units per acre? And so going back and looking at the original PUD in its entirety, they're well within that 2 units per acre when you look at the whole thing comprehensively. And then the whole point of the PUD is that ability to intermix uses, which is part of what you've seen in the overall PUD in terms of density, that this little area down here on the bottom right, definitely smaller lots than a lot of what you've been seeing develop in here through the middle. And then, like I said, these 2 tracks up here that we're talking about were apartments and patio homes. And then the PUD also takes in some land here along Highway 67, which is like right here on this right side. And those tracks were set aside. Some of it is commercial space. I believe there's a little bit of open space and such in there. So it's really a substantial piece of land. And I just don't remember the overall acreage that it covers. So that's how we get to this point.
Thank you.
Just as a note, when we approved the amendment to the PUD, the density in this particular area did go down without taking away the apartments and putting in the townhomes. It's also going the other way. It's less dense. Do we have the guest that is representing them that could just join us on Zoom? I'd like to ask a question.
Yeah, Mr. O'Boyle.
Okay, if there are other questions for the staff? Okay, is the applicant available then to speak via Zoom?
Yes, I'm getting there. Oops. Hang on, Craig, I'm sorry.
Mr. O'Boyle, I think we accidentally muted you. So if you just want to unmute and speak, please do so. There you go.
This is Craig O'Boyle. Hello.
Good evening, we can hear you.
Yes. Okay. Thanks, Karen. I'm sorry I couldn't be there. I actually just got off an airplane from a family spring break trip.
Very good. I'm just curious, what's the status of your construction project? And you said you did pull a grading permit and we're obviously attempting to get underway.
Yeah,
But-
so we have gone through, I think, 3 submissions to get to this point. I believe as CJ said, our final submission was approved, I think, January of this year. And so it's been a 2-year process to get to where we were able to now get the permit. So that forced us basically, while going through multiple submittals, just kind of sit on our hands and wait. And about the time we got the original approval in April is sort of when the macroeconomic situation started to shift with regards to interest rates. So taking this amount of time to get through planning wasn't necessarily a bad thing for us. Where we're at this point is we are of the feeling that things have stabilized to the point where now that we have this through planning to the level where we can raise funds to start moving dirt, that's what we're actively doing. Our goal is to start moving dirt this year as we continue to move forward with everything we're working on in that arena.
With your planning to start this year, how long is it gonna take to build out this section? What's your forecast?
Well, I mean, for the horizontal development side, I imagine it's going to take at least a year to build and sell units. That's the difficult part to forecast. It depends a little bit on interest rate stabilization for the end buyers. We're planning on at least a 2.5-year process. But that can change. Economic conditions obviously affect you a lot in this business, so.
Sure. Okay, thank you. I was just curious how things were going and what the state was. Thank you.
You got it.
Mr. Boyle, did you have any other general comments aside from answering the question?
No, nothing to add. I think CJ pretty well summed up what we're trying to do here, so.
Okay, well, let me open the matter for public comment. Is there anyone here in the room that would wish to speak on the matter? Do you have anyone on Zoom? Any hands raised?
We do not.
All right, that's the case, then there'd be no request for comment. I'll close public comment. I don't think we have any need for applicant rebuttal. Mr. Boyle can speak again if he wishes.
No, I think Karen summed up what we went through with the density per acre with the master subdivision that we're within, so.
Any final staff comments?
None from us, sir.
Any questions from the commission or the applicant or for staff? Any motions on the matter? Refer you again to the staff report. Recommended language for a motion.
I'll make a motion to move this forward to the city council recommending approval of the 2-year extension of the planned unit development and a 1-year extension of the preliminary plat. And the resolution's gonna require that the development still is subject to all the conditions and dimensional standards specified within the original approval.
Thank you, Mr. Kennedy. A second.
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr.
sorry,
Costello.
Okay, thank you. You guys are quiet sometimes and your voices are indistinguishable on occasion, so it's just making sure I got the right
Any
person.
discussion on the motion? We have a vote.
Certainly. And Planning Commissioner George Jones joined us at about 6:50 or so. So we'll start with him. Commissioner Jones,
Yes.
Ken Kennedy,
Yes.
Larry Larson,
Yes.
Don Hoyne.
Yes.
Cole Middleton,
Yes.
Vice Chair Brown,
Yes.
and Don DeZellem.
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0.
Okay. All right, the next item on the agenda, item C, PUD 2024-03 and SUB 2024-03. Pines at Tamarack PUD and preliminary tract amendment, preliminary plat amendment. Request by Dave Garrettson, the applicant, and Pines at Tamarack LLC property owner to amend the previously approved Pines at Tamarack Plan Unit Development, PUD, master plan, and preliminary plat to increase the number of residential lots 26 to 39 and 20.61 acres. Subject property is described as Lot 2, Block 1, Dayspring Christian Fellowship, 205 Sourdough Road, in the Pines at Tamarack PUD Zone District. The QJ matter. We have a staff presentation.
Thank you, Chair. Again, this is a request to amend the previously approved Pines at Tamarack Planned Unit Development Master Plan and preliminary plat. The subject property is a total of 20.61 acres in size and is located on the northern portion of Woodland Park on the east side of Highway 67 and to the northwest of the reserve at Tamarack subdivision. The subject property is north of the intersection of Highway 67 and Fairfield Lane, which is bordered by Highway 67 on its west side and Sourdough Road on its east side. Shiny Mountain Golf Course is located right across the subject property across Highway 67 to the west. As seen here from the zoning map on this slide, the subject property is zoned planned unit development. This property was originally a part of a larger parcel known as Hawk Ridge, which spanned on both sides of Highway 67 and was annexed in 1992. In 1999, the northern triangle, which is now Lot 1, was rezoned from PUD to suburban residential. In the year 2000, the Daysprings Christian Fellowship subdivision was approved, which consisted of the subject property and the northern Lot 1, let's see, which is here on this slide right where my mouse is. And in 2002, construction began on Lot 1, which is now the Impact Church. And Lot 2, which is the subject property, construction never commenced on that site. In 2019, the Pines at Tamarack Plan Unit Development Final Master Plan and Preliminary Plat, which you can see on the right-hand side of the slide, which was approved by City Council. This master plan consisted of 26 single-family lots and 5.05 acres of open space. The applicant then gained extensions of the approved preliminary plat and PUD in 2021 and 2023. Just as a reminder, by city code, preliminary plats can only be extended 1 year at a time, while PUD master plans can be extended 2 years at a time. So that's the reason that the master plan expires in 2025 and the preliminary plat of this year, 2024. On the next few slides, we have some site photos. So just to get you guys familiar with the site. So this is the subject property. Highway 67 on the west side is here where my mouse is. Fairfield Lane is on the south side. This would be facing the town of Woodland Park. And on the east side here is Sourdough Road. The top photo was taken from the intersection of Fairfield Lane and Sourdough Road looking north. The bottom photo was taken from Sourdough Road looking west into the site. The top photo here was taken south of Fairfield Lane and 67 looking north and east. And lastly, on the bottom of your screen, the photo was taken from the northwest corner of the lot looking south and east. And on the bottom of your screen, on the left here, you can see that's the parking lot for the Impact Church.
CJ, is that bike path part of this property or is that city property?
That's actually within CDOT right of way.
Okay.
Yeah. And that's the Centennial Trail, I believe.
Centennial.
Yep. On this slide, we wanted to show a side-by-side comparison of the previously approved master plan, which is on the left-hand side of the slide. And on the right-hand side of the slide is the proposed master plan. As you can see here, the overall layout of the development is the same with the general lot configuration and 2 access points off of Sourdough Road. On the right-hand side of the slide, you will see the proposal consists of two different construction phases. The applicant has expressed their intention is to build out phase one and have construction done as soon as possible. And the goal for phase two is to finish construction sometime in 2026. Another difference with the approved and proposed master plan is the increase in density from 26 dwelling units to 39 dwelling units, which increases the individual lot sizes, which decreases the individual lot sizes. And lastly, the open space that is being proposed. Currently, the approved PUD master plan and preliminary plat for the Pines at Stone Ridge consists of a total of 5.05 acres of open space. The proposal at hand includes an increase of open space for a total of 9.09 acres on the 20-acre site. Here on the screen is an outline of how that 9.09 acres is achieved with a total of 3 open space tracts. The table on this slide is another representation of what is currently approved versus what is being proposed. Highlighted in yellow are the proposed changes, which include the number of units from 26 to 39. The gross density from the approved 1.26 dwelling units per acre to a total of 1.89 units per acre. And lastly, the minimum lot size from 16,000 square feet to 7,800 square feet. On the bottom of this table is the total acreage of each use of the master plan, which includes the housing portion, open space, and right-of-ways. All 3 are being proposed to change. Pursuant to the traffic study recommendation, the applicant proposes to install a 320-foot long plus a 180-foot taper northbound right turn lane deceleration lane on Highway 67, which is outlined in blue here on the screen. As you can see from the CDOT comments, which are in front of all the planning commissioners here tonight, CDOT did submit these comments after the packet went out to you also. That's why you guys have it in front of you tonight. This deceleration lane is a requirement from CDOT. The next Sourdough Road, which is outlined in yellow on this slide, and abuts the eastern property line of the subject property. In order to meet city requirements, the applicant must repair and upgrade Sourdough Road for the full length along the eastern boundary of the subject property. Lastly, I would like to point out that within CDOT's requirements, they are not willing to allow the applicant to build out phase 1 of the development and then construct a deceleration lane. So the deceleration lane would have to be constructed prior to certificate of occupancies being pulled on this property. On this slide here, you see a snapshot of the future land use map within the current master plan. When the original Pines at Tamarack master plan was reviewed, the future land use map at the time had labeled this parcel as residential. Within the current Envision 2030 plan, the future land use map has identified this area for mixed use. Neither the mixed use or the residential plans make recommendations for the density of residential units. And we just want to be clear that the requested amendment is not to change, is to change density or add residential lots and not to change the use. Staff analyzed section 18.30 of the city code, which provides requirements for PUD zone districts. Staff found that the application substantially complies with the sections listed here on the screen. Also, a full analysis was included within your staff report. Lastly, on the PUD amendment analysis was dimensional standards. All development standards are included within the proposed development final plan. The table here on this slide compares the current proposed amendment to the previous approved final development plan, as well as the more typical suburban residential zone district standards. We are looking at the SR zone district because one of the standards that is within the development dimensional standards is that the development must be in harmony with the surrounding area. As you remember from the aerial photo in the beginning of the presentation, just to the east of the subject property is the Reserve at Tamarack subdivision, which is zoned SR and is also within city limits. The two standards that I do want to point out here on this slide is on this table is the minimum lot area and the open space requirements. Within the SR zone district, the minimum lot area is a total of 15,000 square feet, which is quite larger than the proposed 7,800 square feet. In lieu of larger residential lot sizes, the applicant is proposing smaller residential lots for a greater acreage of open space on the site. As you can see, they are proposing 44.1% of the site be open space, which is quite larger than the currently approved 25% and also the 40% required within the SR zone district. Staff also reviewed section 17, which provides requirements for preliminary plats. The application complies with the standards listed here on the screen. And lastly, within the preliminary plat section of the code, it outlines design standards. Staff found that the application substantially complies with the sections listed here on the screen. And again, a full analysis was included within your staff report. Staff referred the application to the agencies listed here on this slide. Staff did not receive any official written public comments, but did field some questions in our planning office from citizens stopping by. So for the recommendation, staff has a few recommendations for you guys tonight. The first recommendation is related to the PUD amendment portion of the application. The recommendation is approval based on the findings in the staff report and as presented at public hearing of the request by David Garrettson, which is the applicant, and the Pines at Tamarack LLC, the property owner, for PUD 2024-03, plan unit development, final development plan for 39 single-family residential lots on 20.61 acres on Lot 2, Dayspring Christian Fellowship, with the address of 205 Sourdough Road in the PUD zone. And that the Planning Commission recommend that City Council approve the dimensional standards as shown in PUD 2024-03, plan unit development, final development plan for 39 single-family residential lots on 20.61 acres on Lot 2, Dayspring Christian Fellowship in the PUD zone. The next recommendation staff has for you tonight is for the preliminary plat, that based on the findings in the staff report and as presented at public hearing, approval of the request by David Garrettson and the Pines at Tamarack LLC for SUB 2024-03 preliminary plat for 39 single-family residential lots on 20.61 acres on Lot 2, Dayspring Christian Fellowship with the address of 205 Sourdough Road in the PUD zone district, subject to the following conditions. Prior to the installation of infrastructure, the applicant shall obtain a zoning development permit for infrastructure, which application includes a final utility plan with profiles for all water, stormwater, and sanitary sewer, final grading and erosion control for the entire site and off-site improvements, final on and off-site street plan with profiles with curb and gutter on both sides of Sourdough Road, final drainage plan and report, approved CDOT access permit, and approved stormwater management plan. Condition of approval number 2, the applicant must resubmit the preliminary plat addressing all comments within the city red line comment packet for approval. The applicant must adhere to all CDOT requirements and gain necessary permits and approvals with CDOT. Prior to conveyance of any proposed lot, the applicant shall record a final plat and complete the installation of all required improvements or enter into a subdivision development agreement fully secured with an acceptable guarantee. All costs associated with constructing the required improvements shall be borne by the developer. Repair and upgrade Sourdough Road to city standards for the full length along the eastern boundary of Lot 2, or enter into a subdivision development agreement fully secured within an acceptable guarantee. And again, all costs for this installation will be borne by the developer. comply with CDOT requirements regarding the deceleration lane on Highway 67. And lastly, prior to recording the final plat, the applicant shall submit covenants, which include deed restrictions that establish a homeowners association to guarantee the architectural and landscape design and maintenance of the common open space and park development fees in the applicable amount. This concludes my presentation. We have the applicant here in the room, and we also have the landowner, Mr. Garrettson, online. So please let us know if you guys have any questions.
Okay, first, have questions for the staff from the planning, from the commission?
I have some questions for staff. And one of the questions have already been answered, and that is, have we received any comments from CDOT? And you provided that to us.
Correct.
I think on this project is very important to have their comments before our decision. So that has been answered. Did you as staff had any conversations with the applicant about the requirement of no or prohibited accessory structures?
We have not had any conversations regarding that.
Okay.
And if, please correct me if I'm wrong. Mr. Hoyk, that's Jim Hoyk is here with us tonight. That hasn't changed from the original approval as well. The original approval also did not allow for accessory structures.
I was aware of that, but at the same time, I realized that's a pretty restrictive requirement.
And if I recall, that is actually the proposal of the applicant.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay. Um. In the discussion of dealing with the various compliance. And the first one being the final plat. There's a requirement for the phasing, and phasing one being. The first, was it 15 lots? Go without having the sourdough connection or the deceleration lane. Oh, one of those two, I can't remember, one of those two. Anyway, will that kind of language be incorporated into the subdivision agreement?
So yeah, if the applicant, decides to go that route, the subdivision development agreement, yeah, definitely staff would, would have to put that language within the subdivision development agreement,
Okay,
stating that those improvements would have to be done prior to certificates of occupancy being issued.
okay. And I'm very familiar with the Hoffer annexation, because I worked on that particular project way back when. Well, last century. So I was very much aware of this triangle not having any designation. And that was desired by the applicant at that time because they didn't know what they wanted to do with that property. So we just agreed to leave it blank, and then at the time of development, that would be addressed at that time. Just to let you know. Now, there in the report, it also talks about the preliminary utilities report. And did you receive any comments from city utilities or comments?
We did receive a few comments from the utilities department. A portion of them were, Mr. Wiley's, he's, our utilities director, normal comments as far as, the type of infrastructure and, the gauges of the pipes and things like that. But, as far as the water portion, as you guys know, water is, we hold our taps very dear. And the utilities department, they look at the zoning. So when this was rezoned or zoned to PUD, like we alluded to previously tonight, it's allowed for 2 dwelling units an acre. So technically the utilities department did plan for that 2 dwelling units per acre on this property. So I'm not sure the utilities department is very happy about the increase in density, but they would serve it.
So the preliminary water allocation
Is there. Yeah,
Stated two units per acre.
per the PUD zone district, yes. Yeah,
That
they,
answers my next question.
they would serve.
Okay.
Yep.
And then the last question is the park board review this particular project, or are they
No,
accepting fees?
So per city code, this does have to get routed to the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board at that final plat. I do know that the applicant has had conversations with our Parks and Recreation manager, Cindy Keating. So maybe we can ask him what those conversation has been like. I know they were trying to get in front of PRAB. I just don't think they ever did with scheduling and things like that. But as far as city code is concerned, this, when they do submit for final plat, it will go in front of PRAB and they will have a recommendation for fees and things like that. So,
Okay.
yeah.
That's all the questions I have for now.
Awesome.
Just to clarify, the practice is for PRAB to look at only final plats, not preliminary plats?
We have this conversation at a staff level quite often, and that's kind of where our city comes back in. You know,
My impression was as a preliminary plat where it'd be a lot more useful to hear.
so, yeah.
I agree wholeheartedly. This is what I agree. The code does say specifically final plat. It does not address PRAB looking at things at preliminary. So.
Did other people have questions? I had a couple. Questions. Anyone else have?
I just, question for the applicant. I'm just curious why,
We should wait for the applicant till he's had a chance to present. If that's all right.
Yeah.
Okay. I wanted to ask about the open space. You had a chart which showed the area, the hash marks across the areas of the open space. There. Tell me if I'm wrong where the application, I was looking at ordinance 18.30.090, common open space requirements. You quote the first portion of it in the staff report. You didn't really mention in detail summary here now. The last paragraph of the ordinance reads that open space requirements shall not include roadways, associated drainage, utility easements, and other infrastructure areas incidental to the project unless a specific public good can be demonstrated which benefits the community at large. There's an awful lot of utility easements. There's a drainage areas. I think up in the upper right-hand corner is a mailbox delivery area, or maybe that's it. But based upon, it appears that this nine acre conclusion, the 40%, is based upon the applicant taking the gross area minus the area of lots and road, which is dramatically different from the applicable open space. Call attention also back to the beginning of that ordinance 18.30.090. No open space may be accepted as common space under the provisions of the chapter unless its character and quality has been approved by the planning commission. So at least that's something which the commission, I would think, should consider in this. What, I mean, some open space is generated by making some of the lots smaller. Previously, the back of a lot of these lots went out to the Highway 67 right of way. Now they made them smaller, so we created a path there. I don't know if it's quality open space or not, but it was, without some of that area, it may be hard to get the open space required. It's a minimum of 15%. And frankly, just based upon that, I have no way to know where, looks like, I guess it's, you take out the utilities, drainage, other common uses and such. I suppose it may well be over 15%, but that's really kind of taking a wild guess.
I would suggest looking at page 7 of the staff report.
Okay.
And I don't know if you're able to pull that up, CJ, and share it or not. But on this particular page in the staff report, there's site data tables. The top part is from the current approval. The bottom one is for what's being proposed. So they're a little awkward to compare since they're not side by side. But when you look at the original approval, there's not another line in there that talks about like easements and some of that infrastructure that you were mentioning. But I think in that original approval that a lot of those easements and such showed up on the lots themselves. And now, that the lots are smaller, those easements, especially along the perimeter, are still around the perimeter of the subdivision. They just land in that open space area where you then have utilities. So, because when you look at these, the acreage is total the same at the end of the day.
Well, it totals 20 acres minus the area of the roads. No, just saying, it just didn't seem any recognition of the ordinance that says you don't include roadways, associated drainage, utility easements, and other infrastructure areas. And the open space appears to me to be it's not clear how useful it is, particularly with any potential trails that might be here not included at this point in time. And I realize that that's partly addressed in comments on the preliminary plat and red lines, but it wasn't addressed specifically. It gave some examples of things that wasn't definitive how it's going to be done. These open spaces here might be more attractive, better in harmony with the area if some of these trails were actually shown on the plat, so that one has some confidence the trails will be there. Have multiple points from here connecting to the Centennial Trail, for instance, perhaps other things, but anyway, I was bothered that seeing the change in density gave a different feel to the development. And it was that was sufficient reason for me to think one should be looking at where is there elements of discretion approval of this process. And
I have some similar concern. Based on what we've been. I have similar concerns based on what we've been presented. On how the open space is gonna be utilized and trading that for lot sizes that's not in harmony with the surrounding neighborhoods.
And that's what it seemed to me. I want to hear more information on it, but looked to be this way. Small item, but dimensional standards weren't changing between other than the size of the lots. The table, not this table, the different table on the dimensional standards seemed to show the maximum setback projection gone from 2 feet on the original plan, the current plan, to 3 feet now. That's not a big difference there, but with only 8 feet side setback, 3-foot projection starts to become more significant. And anyway, I just want to clarify, it looks to me like there is a dimensional change proposed here. It's on the table for that, which attention should be directed to that. I don't know if there are others that people have noticed, but. There, just the staff, that wasn't intended to be changed there. Is that correct? That was an intentional change in this, the setback projections?
Yes, I believe, we can ask the applicant to make sure, but yes, I believe that was intentional to change that projection.
Other questions for the staff before the applicant speaks? And I know there's questions for the applicant too. All right, can we have this representative of the applicant speak, please? Could you give your name and address? And please speak on the application, and of course you can address comments we've made as well now too.
You bet. Thank you. Can you hear me okay? Excuse me. Jim Hauk, I'm with Kimley Horn over the Land Planning and Civil Engineering Group, supporting the project for Mr. Garrison. And we were also, prior to Kimley Horn, my firm Thomas & Thomas represented the project early on, and we've kind of carried it through consistently through the process. So I guess I'm the common denominator as we've went through the process with the city over the years. And you had a slideshow for me too. And I think, CJ's done a great job of kind of hitting a lot of the details. So we'll kind of go quickly in some of this, but we'll also make sure we target those comments and questions that you had. as we move forward.
If I'm lagging behind Jim, just please tell me next slide.
Okay. Again, this is again for context. I don't think we need to stick here. We can move on. This kind of gets to the heart of some of the questions that were being raised at the moment. I do see that, a good observation. There should have been a category in there that separated out the roads, so to speak, as far as how the lot and the parcels were being added up. As it relates to the site layout itself, it's literally the same road layout. We've shortened the little bit of the cul-de-sacs at this point with the new layout. The lots, the depths did not go all the way up to 67. There was a 60-foot buffer in there that was maintained prior to this. So those little ziggy zag lines you kind of see along the highway, those landscape kind of elements, we were kind of putting some theming to that with some fencing. Those are in the same exact spot as they were before. The lots just don't go back as far. And excuse me, and within that green area is what's been identified as also the trail. And there's a few utility easements through there, major extensions for utilities like water and some wastewater and some gas. The space between the two pods, and I don't have any way of controlling this or pointing, but the space between, no, so back. The space between the kind of the two phases, that's kind of a natural drainage way through there. So a lot of effort has been really focused on how do we maintain the character of that through there, at the same time managing to address all the stormwater that's coming from offsite through the property itself. The detention pond is one area that will disturb some trees, and that will also be part of preserving kind of that frontage along there, breaking that frontage up a little bit with some houses, or from the houses and from the views from the trail, the community trail. I'm trying to remember some of the other things you brought on. I wanted to make sure we hit those before we get too far. The overall open space also increases along the sourdough side. Again, we were conscious of, as we went through the process last time with the neighborhood, we wanted to make sure we maintain or increase the buffer between the folks on the other side of sourdough. We think we can create we can preserve the character of the property by shrinking the footprint for the development of the houses. Create a little enclave inside the trees. The goal really is to preserve as much of the site itself, and provide a mechanism for doing a nice job of maintenance and management on that with the HOA. Next slide. Again, there's no changes here based on this amendment. These are trees right along the trail. Next picture. And from a utility standpoint, the utility plan basically stays exactly the same as before as well. The blue lines represent the water connections and loops. The pink, purple areas represent the drainage. And then you can see, it's hard to see the green line, but that's the one that goes up towards the second lot there, towards the Impact Church. That's where that wastewater system will be connecting. Again, no real changes from an infrastructure standpoint on the property. Again, as mentioned, the focus has really been on reducing the footprint on the property itself, preserving more of the trees. The open space is really supposed to be more of a passive open space. We are not asking the Parks Department to take on open space or public amenities within the property. We have been talking with them about the connections through the drainage, that natural drainage area, looking at a trail connection, some sourdough down to the Centennial Trail. Right now, there's no real public trail infrastructure on Sourdough or in the neighborhood to the east. So, you know, the value may still be primarily focused on these residents as a whole. But we are having that conversation, and as mentioned, that would be finalized as we move forward with final plat. Next slide. The other thing talked about was the Sourdough improvements. Again, that's nothing new to this amendment. It's been embraced as far as part of the change or part of the improvements that are required with the property. This picture just represents kind of the unimproved areas of Sourdough and then the existing curb and gutter and pavement that's there. So that will continue up through the property. I'm sure, assuming that will improve the condition of Sourdough's access up to the county line. Next slide. As mentioned too, CDOT, they're always kind of late to the game, I guess, providing comments. But we are engaging with them on the conversations. There's, I guess, nothing really there that surprises us based on what we've already went through with the original PUD amendment and preliminary plat. We will continue to have that conversation to move forward and get the access permit re-access or getting a new access permit approved. So again, nothing there that seems to be a challenge, and our goal would be to hopefully have those answers and everything kind of cleaned up, tightened up before city council. Next slide. Again, just another picture of the corridor. The amenity focuses on preserving that as much as possible. Next slide. This picture again represents the previous landscape. And if you can see on these lots, you can see those lots came a bit further down to that red dashed line. But we are also preserving a much larger buffer with the new lots. We did have a preservation zone identified originally with the PUD. We've kind of, I guess, included that totally into the common space at this point in the open space. And then just an accent or a picture of kind of a conceptual idea of what we're thinking about for kind of creating some theming with the landscape on the property as well along the highway corridor and at the entrances. Next slide. Mitigation is also a big concern. We heard that last time. We've worked through that with our forest people. And I know that's been reviewed by the fire department, and we're maintaining a status quo there as far as the intent of the PUD and the management of that open space. Next slide. Again, no real changes. We're looking at a mixture of materials and stuff architecturally wise, beginning to develop some discussions around what those covenants want to be and need to be, both from how are we maintaining the roads and open space, but also how are we addressing opportunities here with architecture. Next slide. I bring that back to this picture here, just again, kind of give us a picture of the open space. We wanted to highlight again the buffers separating us from the highway and from the residents to the east. Doesn't look a whole lot different, but there are definitely some dimensional differences as mentioned. We're happy to talk more in detail about any specifics there. I know we kind of started that conversation here a little bit, but happy to jump into a little bit more conversation about that with you. As I think as Karen might have already referred to, is, you know, the same process we took to identify lot coverage, open space coverage and such in ratios is what was carried through from the original process. So we didn't veer from that. We used the same, I guess, mathematical equation, so to speak, to get our percentages. There was another comment about water, and we did early on, before we even attempted a process of changing the density we did meet with staff and Public Works was able to confirm our 2 to an acre accounting, I guess, water accounting for this parcel. And we were under that by a couple. So we did our homework early on that. As I mentioned, we did talk, we are talking and we'll continue to talk with Parks Department as we move forward to see what opportunities are there to provide some public access or amenity through the property or associated with Centennial Trail. Let's see what else. What else did we miss? What comments did you want to cover also? I guess I would ask staff or the commissioners if there was anything.
Questions from the commissioners?
Yes, I have one, sir. So I'm just kind of just generally curious, why you're seeking the amendment and why you made changes to the original plan.
I think there's just been, there's been kind of a, coming through COVID, coming out of COVID, I should say, there's been a lot of adjustments in the economy and in overall variables that impact development. And I think the idea of making these improvements along the highway, along Sourdough, played into that. I mean, it's a fair amount of improvements, level of improvements for the number of units that we were proposing. And also, I think there was also a much deeper dive into what the market is in the region, within the community. And we think there's a perfect kind of balance there for us to meet. And that included those additional 14 lots. So I think it's part of a math equation, but we also think by the scaling of the lots and the units, we can create a nice little enclave that might be unique to Woodland Park as well. So.
And I think this was kind of already shown in your presentation, but the use of the open space is a lot of it just intended to stay kind of how it looks today, forested, and then kind of the fencing area that you showed in the slide. Or is there larger plans than that for the open space?
No, it's more of just a passive open space for the residents. We anticipate there'll be a lot of little social trails ultimately developed in there. But I think there's the thought that maybe there's a better opportunity also to connect, as we talked about with the Parks Department, maybe a trail down through the drainage area, kind of follow that natural drainage. Again, based on the infrastructure needs, I say recreation infrastructure needs, we're kind of a funny little spot within the community. There's not a lot of other things happening around us that we connect to, but I think for the most part, we wanted to be conscious of the forest health, fire mitigation concerns. Part of that will be then managed through the HOA, but then really focusing more on a passive environment there.
Okay, thanks, sir.
Questions?
Yeah, with the change in the number of lots and the size of the lots, what's the intended size of the structures, or whether there are changes to those as well, or just the land?
No, the building footprint pretty much stayed pretty close to the same. I mean, we shrunk it just a little bit. I can't remember off the top of my head the exact, but just a couple hundred square feet difference. Before, what we had is more of a building envelope defined. And we just messed with that envelope a little bit. We did some market work to understand what footprints would require within a lot like this. So we're still defining that footprint with the setback pretty well. And I guess not getting too far into the weeds yet with of defining an architectural building type yet, but we have a number of, I think the idea would be to have a number of different types of products in there to get the ball rolling, create some variety. I don't know if that answers your question or not, but.
Mr. Hawk, do you agree with the city's staff recommendation and the conditions as proposed?
Yes, We were planning to, we understood and that was consistent with what was previously provided within the PUD amendment last time, I guess. The only things that we're working through is probably the final little back and forth with CDOT to finalize that access permit. And I guess I would also, if you didn't have more questions, I'd offer Mr. Garrison the opportunity to say anything he might want to say as well. He got snowed out last time. We were all prepared to be here, but.
Among the city red lines comment, there was a discussion about looping the water lines. Is that, you have any comment on their comments?
We stuck with our original submittal. We stuck with that same utility plan that was approved last time. But we'll continue to work with them to make sure it's safe. I mean, we don't want to put anybody at risk. We know the conditions that everybody face these days in our Colorado climate. We do have one loop through the property already. I think the city staff was talking about some additional the dead end potentials. And I think we have some opportunities there to solve those for them. But we just haven't gotten those comments in timely fashion.
What is the prior utility plan say for looping the water, that something that? Excuse me, the applicant just made reference to a previous, I guess.
The previous
current
PUD,
plan.
the current approved PUD, the utility plan is consistent with that, so.
I was confused by the,
Oh.
I was confused by the applicant. Okay, all right. There's two things going on. First off, is there, in order to provide loop for here, which usually it's required for over 10 or 12 dwellings. One's gonna have to go across the road to catch water main over there to create a loop because it's already a dead end line. Sourdough. Is that correct?
Yes,
And is that satisfactory?
I think we could make all that work.
Now, the second point relating to this, and this is something which we in other developments have required, when a phase one of a project was a dead end, requirement that the complete loop be done as part of the first phase, because who knows when the second phase is going to happen. So it would seem like a condition to be added in here, and I have this feeling some of these things may have been discussed that we don't know about, but is it satisfactory to complete the looping?
I'll make one clarification
phase
too.
during-
There was a
during the phase
discussion, I
one.
think in the comments, I saw something about under the highway. Wasn't quite sure what that meant yet, so we haven't had that conversation with Public Works.
Okay, I'm sorry, I thought you said you didn't have any objection, but apparently.
No, I'm clarifying something before we go to the next.
As I understand it, there's a single line that heads up Sourdough. That's primarily planning to hook into, but
Yep.
even if you put a loop with inside the subdivision, it hasn't created a loop for subdivision because it's a dead end line.
If you, there's a loop, there's a connection in Sourdough and there's a one at Fairfield. So we're connecting down at Fairfield. There's a water building there, small building. It'll go up the property and loop up Sourdough.
Then come back down.
What we don't have is, I think the staff said something about a connection through underneath the highway, and that was new to me, so we haven't had that chance to even talk with Public Works about those comments.
Staff, something useful in that. I'm not a utility expert, so I really don't know, but we've got this many units. It's ordinarily on a looped water line.
And for your point, Mr. Hoyk, this is what you had in your presentation. Do you want to hit on that at all, or? And then I can read the comment verbatim if that helps you guys at all, from our utilities director. But, it's up to you guys.
That's helpful, sure.
Okay.
Well, and while CJ's pulling that up, Mr. Hoyt, if you could
I'm sorry. I'll
Oops.
pull it back up.
do just kind of a quick overview of that slide as soon as we get it back, since you had it color coded with the utilities. Is it not showing on your side of the screen?
It is there,
Okay,
but the water connects here. And move up to Sour Grove. I wasn't sure about the piece across the highway that popped up, so.
Right.
so on that slide that was just up, the blue represents water lines.
Correct.
And so the official comment from the utilities department was the water line will need to be looped. City engineering specifications only allow 12 units on a dead end line. This project is already on a dead end line. Looping the water main across the highway will need to be discussed. So that was the comment from our utilities director. So it sounds like conversations will definitely be had in the future with the applicant and our utilities department.
Does will need to be discussed mean the city can require it? Or does that need to be added as a condition to the approval?
Well, and at this point, with a preliminary plat, I've used the analogy before that subdivision plats are like English essays from high school, that the sketch plan is the outline. The preliminary plat is your rough draft, and it's your final plat that's your final document, your finished product. And so since we're at preliminary plat, this is all very much preliminary engineering. So through that initial review, you get comments back that then get incorporated into further design of all the utilities and such. So to your point, sir, I think we've got this covered in terms of in the conditions adhering or addressing all of the red line comments provided by city staff. So it's covered broadly, but must directly address this comment. It's more all of them as opposed to picking them out.
I would assume we don't get to final plat unless we've come to understandings and conditions with what's Public Works, so.
Yeah, you're pretty much needing stuff together at final plat and, ready to construct if you haven't
Yeah.
already gotten construction approvals.
Would I be correct in understanding that the phasing would have to be approved, including any necessary infrastructure of phase two that was somehow in jeopardy if it was not done at time of phase one, could also be made a condition of any final platting on first phase?
That's correct. Yeah. So as far as conditions, that could be a condition within the approval of the final plat. Also, that could be some language within the subdivision development agreement as well. And that's also done at final plat stage. So
Can I ask, sir, what is the area of the open space that's comprised of drainage, utility easements, and other infrastructure areas?
Ask me one more time.
As represented, there's 9 acres of the 20 acres was open space. Open space within our ordinance excludes those things I just mentioned. Do you know what the area of those excluded items is?
I don't know the exact acreage, no. I'd have to provide that with the follow-up. I think we're being consistent as we could with the previous approved plan, that it included all of those areas in the math. To be consistent, in both cases, we've exceeded the maximum or the minimum number of open space square footages or acreages.
The reason I ask is because we don't know what the area is. It's kind of hard to know, except kind of a guess whether it does exceed the minimum.
If you go back to the utility plan again, we can kind of show that.
got a lot of tabs open here. Just give me 1 second.
I'm gonna come around to your side of the screen real quick.
Sure. When you're speaking, if you'd use the microphone too, so that people online can hear you, but
You
sure.
can take that out.
Okay, here we go. So the easements on the property today are following the highway right of way. So they're Yeah, let's see, it's 15 foot and another 10, 15 foot, another 30 feet of easement along the highway here. And there's another 30 foot along Sourdough that includes all the electrical lines. Besides that, the only infrastructure, so to speak, or utility would be the detention pond. And that natural drainage, that's all the natural drainage there today, so. So that's the extent of the utilities
There's utility easements up in the upper left, aren't there?
upper left.
What's the small print say?
There's, well,
That's a 15-foot utility easement on the
Okay,
north.
that's what I said, there's utility easements in the.
that's
northwest
the
too.
proposed one, yeah. Okay.
All right, just a small item, what's the significance of increasing the setback projection from 2 feet to 3 feet?
I'm sorry, what item are you talking about?
In a table which TJ presented,
But what category were you talking about?
The bottom, the very bottom of that table.
Oh, for the buildings? That was just a decision to be made on some architectural options.
okay, because and there's not a lot of difference between 2 feet and 3 feet if it's on front and back. If it's on the side, I mean, I don't know, my own personal reaction is that you got an 8-foot setback on the side, 3 feet starts to narrow the projection quite a bit, but
From an
I
architectural
want
standpoint.
him to have that reaction too. I'm just wanting a small item.
From an architectural standpoint, that extra foot makes a big difference in passive solar and some of the energy savings as well, so. You don't look like you believe me, but. Just cutting the sun angles on and coming into windows during
On
certain
side
times of the year.
setbacks, it would probably be less significant. See, the houses are so close together, there's not a lot of solar coming between the houses.
Yeah.
I would have thought. All right,
And
enough-
again, just go back to Mr. Kenning's comment too, was we've identified setbacks. The buildings has to fit within inside of. We think the building envelope that we've provided gives architecture or the property owners enough options to push and pull within that space to create some options and variations in the building. So we don't know exactly how close or how far or where they'll actually sit along there yet, but we think there's a building envelope that'll serve well. So.
Enough for me. Any other comments too? Questions of the applicant? We still need to ask for public comment as well. Okay, well, let me open the matter for public comment. Does anyone here wish to speak on the matter? Anyone in the room? Is anyone online who'd like to speak? Please click the button to raise your hand.
First up, we have Joe Fury. Mr.
Okay.
Fury, you should be set to speak.
Mr. Fury, if you give your name and your address, please, and please proceed.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, just fine. Thank you.
Okay, Joe Fury, 565 Pembroke Drive. I'm in the Tamarack neighborhood near to this project. And I've got a few questions. One of my concerns is dust. I'd like to understand phase 1, phase 2 is when phase 1 is worked on, are the houses going to be built immediately, or is the phase 1 house area just going to be bulldozed and then they sell lots to individual people and wait for them to build? I'm just wondering how long bare dirt's going to be left as bare dirt.
Yeah, Joe, the way it works is if you make your comments and you can include questions in those, as many as you'd like, but public comment isn't an exchange, isn't a back and forth between you and the applicant, but comments for the commission. And if those include questions, we'll want to make certain that the applicant addresses those. So if you could, just go ahead to your questions seriatim. Thank you.
Okay, well, that's my first question. Okay, I'm, the village of Tamarack, for example, they bulldoze the entire area. And right now there's just a handful of structures and the rest of the village of Tamarack is all bare dirt. And when the wind picks up, we get dust in the air. Okay, next subject is lights. If there's going to be any street lights, will they be cut off? And also lights on houses, will those be cut off so they're not throwing light up into the sky? Okay, the turning lane, what the city staff said is that, or apparently what CDOT said was that a turning lane must be built and finished before a certificate of occupancy is permitted. That was the exact same requirement for the village of Tamarack with turn lanes at Tamarack Parkway, I believe. And now there's, like I said, 6, 7, whatever occupied structures at the village of Tamarack and no turn lanes. So I'm concerned about, is the same thing going to happen here? I'd like to see a stronger, something strong to require the turn lane before occupancy. And I think there should be a turn lane before construction when we have a lot of construction trucks going in and out of that sourdough off of 67. Okay, I'm somewhat concerned. If there were a fire evacuation in the area, I'd be trying to get out of Tamarack, and there's only 2 exits from Tamarack to Highway 67. And the one closest to me is right by this development on Sourdough. And right now, Sourdough has the priority for traffic. I have to yield to Sourdough traffic. So I'm a little concerned about another 39 houses worth of cars trying to get out and preventing me from getting my turn to get onto 67. I'm somewhat concerned about the based on the pictures that were shown in the presentation, the house footprints look to be pretty take up a lot of the lots without a whole lot of space between the houses. So I'm a little concerned about the look of that. It's becoming borderline trailer parky looking with the houses so close together and on such small lots. And I'm also concerned about, again, fire jumping from one house to the other. I'm hoping the houses don't all use wood siding, but I guess that's not for me to say. Let's see. Oh, I've noticed in some of the other developments, like around Stone Ridge or behind Stone Ridge, when lots were cleared, a lot of trees and associated debris were stacked up in big piles, and those piles have been left in those areas for years. And they look like great places for fires to start or perpetuate. So my question to the commission is, are these guys, when they bulldoze down a lot of trees, are those trees, is that tree material going to be removed, or is it going to be just left somewhere on
We're getting down to
I'm sorry? Okay. Okay, and I'm wondering, is this 20 acres still for sale? Because there's still a for sale sign on it. And I guess I can't get an answer immediately, but That's a question I have. Also, the drainage, looks like it's intended to ultimately go under Highway 67. But right now, there's very small culverts taking water under 67 in that area along those 20 acres. Are those going to be enlarged? Because I don't think they'd be able to handle in a large rain event runoff from 39 houses and the streets. Let's see. Okay, I guess those are my concerns.
All right, thank you, Mr. Fury.
Okay.
All right, does we have anybody else online? Does anyone raise their hand?
We do not.
Okay, last call. All right, let me close the public comment. All right, now an opportunity for the applicant to make a rebuttal or public comment. Did you get, I had eight items. Mr. Fury raised.
I made 9.
Pardon?
I found 9.
Okay,
Sure, I'm happy to help answer some of these questions. And then let me think here. There's 1, 2, 3 of these are kind of construction, site prep kind of questions, I guess, as well as the CDOT question comment. So maybe I'll incorporate all of those into maybe. So I am not a construction expert, but I've worked with a lot of clients go through the construction process. So I'll give you my nickel tour of what that process looks like. And in this case, when we have 2 phases of work, that would dictate kind of how this plays out a bit. As it relates to kind of timing of the CDOT access and construction, there's a lot of expense and a lot of time put into permits and during construction. And what would happen is the first phase of construction would include a window of opportunity to do the work on site, make the improvements on sourdough, and at the same time begin to stage the work for CDOT. So you'd have the crew on site moving through a process with the goal of making those improvements happen. So that would take care of our the question about sourdough and some dust, as well as dust on site that we'd have to be managing, which is part of the permitting process. And then also as it relates to the construction at CDOT. Also, I think I would want to be conscious of the fact that with the construction happening, everybody's going to get tired of orange cones too. So staging that appropriately is going to be part of that exercise. As far as clearing the site, there would be an effort to come in and do all of the earthwork at one time, do all the utilities at one time, do the clearing at one time. With that being said, we are intentionally trying to keep our footprint small, creating an enclave, kind of burying these houses within the mature trees that are out there today. With those plans come erosion control plans, dust control plans, and such that are managed at the state level as well as at the city level. So those things would be in place to help secure that. I cannot speak to the projects that have happened around town or what's currently happening, but that's just my overview for you on those types of items. As far as lighting, there's been no street lighting planned. We're respecting the dark sky here. That includes cutoff lights so that we're not interfering with our neighbors. So that would be part of the architecture standards. As far as uh, meeting some of the building codes and fire concerns. That's an evolving process. We know our regional building department is constantly looking at code requirements and updates, and those will be met by all architecture being planned out here. And obviously being conscious of things which are no longer available in the market because they're flammable. You know, the old favorite was the the cedar shingles quickly got replaced because of the fire hazards, and those are now concrete and slate. So the design will be meeting all the development standards and regional architecture development code requirements per the fire department and regional building. As far as the drainage on the site, and yes, there's a couple of culverts that go under the highway that take the historic flows today, the natural pattern of the stormwater coming off the site. It is by code required for us to capture that water before it leaves the site, treat it for water quality, and release it at historic flows or less. And the goal is always less. So that those culverts will not be overwhelmed by the infrastructure that's being planned. But those are things that we'll continue to work with CDOT on as well as Public Works. Let's see what else. Enclave, fire, lighting. Is the land for sale? Everything's for sale, I would guess, at some point. But at this point, the client, my client is motivated to create something unique and special with this proposal. I think I answered all the questions. Did I miss anything there, Mr. Chairman?
I think the city ordinances already deal with cutoff lights.
Yeah.
For,
They have a dark sky ordinance.
not quite a full dark sky, but for,
Downward face.
commercial and, streetlights, but it does not apply to individual residential houses.
Hopefully people will do it, but I
Well,
don't see this being the only development in the city getting a requirement of downward cast lights for the residents.
And you may recall, we had talked about that at one of our code work sessions, the desire that there, it actually comes from some folks in the community. There is an interest in creating that type of standard in our code, but it is not there at this point in time. And then Mr. Hoke had just said that they were considering that through their own architectural standards, if I recall.
Correct.
Yeah.
Questions or comments from the commission based upon applicant's presentation and rebuttal? Staff comments?
My only comment would be is I do have concerns about this harmonizing and complying with the code as it relates to harmonizing with the surrounding community. And that was also brought up by I believe it was Mr. Fury. So that's my only comment.
And I'm sorry, I didn't quite hear you. You're spoken.
Just that I'm concerned that this doesn't harmonize well with the surrounding communities. And that was one of the things highlighted by the city as something that this needs to comply with as we move through the process.
Thank you.
Any final staff comments?
No, sir.
A discussion by the commission? Motions? Concerns?
I did have one thing, and this is probably for the city, and it's slightly off topic. Mr. Fury mentioned that when they did the Tamarack development, that there was the turn lane that was required. Is that?
Ultimately,
have that?
we can't discuss that tonight during this meeting because this is a quasi judicial item. So yeah, unfortunately, we can't talk about other projects, but it's definitely something we can look into, right?
You can address the concern. What's the timing?
So I guess
required of a.
so to make it related to this project, how do we ensure that that's enforced as we go through?
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, and I believe Mr. Fury was actually referring to the village at Tamarack, the small home development. So that's different than the most recent apartment proposal that we had talked about. So yeah, it was the village of Tamarack was well before CJ or I were here. So
But as far as how do we ensure that the turn lane does get constructed? So we do that for conditions of approval within the final plat and within the preliminary plat. And lastly, through the subdivision development agreement as well. So during final plat, they'll enter the city. Typically what happens is the city and the applicant enters into a subdivision development agreement. When that final plat ultimately gets approved by city council, everyone signs it, and the final plat and the subdivision development agreement get recorded concurrently together. So that's recorded with Teller County Clerk and Recorder's Office, and that makes it official. So that's the city's legally binding document. A lot of the times the subdivision development agreement includes some sort of bonding or escrow. We have a couple different options for developers on how they want to do that. One option is they bond for an amount of infrastructure that they still have to install. The turn lane might be one of them. The sourdough road construction could be one of them as well. So they would put that money up front and the bank would hold that escrow. If for some reason the developer, something happens to the developer and the city has to finish that job to make sure we don't have any quote unquote ghost subdivisions, we would have that money to do that work, if that makes sense.
Yes, it does.
So.
Okay, well. Any motions or thoughts about a motion that any of you have?
excuse me, Mr. Chair. Since this has got a couple of moving parts, you all may want to break this into several motions that may be easier to digest. But whatever works for y'all.
There is a staff recommendation that it be approved and is subject to various conditions. First off, is that the way the commission wishes to go, or do people have additional conditions, or are matters that such substance that is not dealt with by condition and they disagree with the recommendation? Thoughts on it? Where is everybody?
I'm okay with the motion to grant the amendment to the PUD. The conditions that are listed are similar to what we see on a lot of them, I guess, but a lot of times we go through those and look and see if there's anything particular. Getting the zoning development permits, typical, responding red line comments is typical, CDOT requirements typical. So the one about prior to conveyance of any proposed lot, the applicant shall record a final plat. Final plat's always required at some point. But that section, I'm not sure. It does require the upgrade of Sourdough Road on the eastern boundary. Okay, I just wanted to make sure it's limited. Could you expound on number 5 in that list of conditions? The covenants.
Sure.
Section.
Yeah, so as far as the covenants are concerned, the city does require with the final plat that the developer submit the covenants to the city for review. And
So
then
that's the architectural requirements and other restrictions for that homeowners association, basically.
correct.
Okay.
And then as far as park development fees, in the applicable amount. So like we kind of alluded to before, once they apply for the final plat, it will get routed to the PRAB. And PRAB will take a look at it and give you guys a recommendation as far as, fees in lieu and trails, all that.
Those will all be part of the final plat hearing, right?
Correct. And which also is a public hearing, so you guys will definitely see the final plat application when it does come.
My sense is that there's some incipient disagreements here about phasing and subdivision agreement may be the source of some negotiations to be necessary here. I guess it's clear I have my concerns about this. As far as technical objections, one is I don't like the fact that we can't say how much is open space in accordance with the ordinance.
Yeah.
And with that, how is the planning commission supposed to determine? Determine that its character and quality is satisfactory to the planning commission. We don't even know how much it is.
So just to kind of further discussion then, or move towards an agreement for this evening. Are you recommending that we defer until you have something submitted that we can review, or would you want to make that a condition? I'm not pushing one or the other. I'm just trying to draw it to a resolution.
And it stands. I'm inclined to vote against. If I come back with more information, then I would probably have a different view, but I'm just 2, 4, 6, we went in online. I'm just one of seven people. And view it.
We also do have Mr. Jones online as well.
Oh, I should have asked to George, did you have any comments on this?
Yeah, no, I think that's valid, Lee. That, and as I was listening to you guys, and I apologize, I'm not feeling great. But as I was listening to that, I do think it's important that we understand how they came to that number. Where's that open space number? And does it, it didn't look like it was going to include a lot of, the easement was going to tear into that number too much, but I don't know. So I would like to know that. Yes, I would agree with you.
And the reason I ask, because I'm not comfortable that the neighborhood needs houses packed that much more tightly together is the reason I was thinking about open space. I mean, really concerned with me, but I don't know where they are. So we need a motion on the table, and we can then still have further discussion on the motion.
I can get a copy of what that looks like. I will make the motion.
Let's get.
I can't hear you.
I just, what's the motion language?
That's, you want to, CJ, would it help if you brought up on the screen?
This one's a little harder because of the way it's written with the conditions.
Well, and there's like several moving parts, so there's almost like 2, if not potentially 3 potential motions. And I would encourage the commission, the first question is, do you need more information related to open space to make a decision?
I would like more information on open space.
Would we consider approving the preliminary with the condition that they provide a detailed open space plan that we'll review at the final?
I mean, I think that's fine.
Sorry, I couldn't.
So we could approve the preliminary, and part of our approval would be that we require a detailed open space plan prior to approving final.
I don't think so. Once the preliminary is approved, unless we put conditions on it of some sort. Generally, if they come up with a final, I would think it's too late for me to say, gee, I don't think this is good open space.
Yeah.
Or similar in any other kind of similar issue.
Well, and there is the criteria that the final plat complies with the preliminary. So, if you're looking for a change at that point, that's potentially problematic. So to this point, this line of discussion, if you are thinking you would like more clarification from the applicant on this, and I don't know that this is math, Mr. Hout can do on the fly here, may need to do some more detailed analysis with the computer to get you more exact numbers. My suggestion would be to continue the hearing until April,
Give them two till the
the
second.
first meeting in April, which is the second Tuesday.
Is 2 weeks sufficient time for the applicant to address the question about open space, or would it be, would the fourth Thursday in April be better?
Give you that math by 10 o'clock.
I'm curious about your concern with the requirement for open space being much less than what's being shown. And it being an increase from what we approved on the preliminary plat that was previously approved. What's your concern with this increase? That it's not designated what is consumed by streets?
I'm not sure. I feel that this is in harmony with the neighborhood generally.
Well, that I can understand.
And in that context, there's a technical requirement here, which we have no information on whether it's satisfied beyond sort of saying, gee, it looks like it may be enough. I asked the question of their engineering, said, I don't know. What's the area?
So
Oh, what the breakout is, because it listed as open space, but it doesn't designate
And whether
whether it's streets or
and
easements.
aside from meeting the minimum 15%, they came back with a drawing which had some of these trail connections and such too in it. I take a look and say, and that's open space, which meets the character and quality that I find satisfactory and other people in the commission find satisfactory. So it's really,
I
it's
understand.
really
Okay.
two things. It's the amount and quality. You'll come back and get them. You'll find it technically satisfies it, come back, but that's. Because we don't usually reject these things, but this one just rubs me.
Yeah, I'm concerned about quality, so.
yeah, I think I alluded that some of my questions about the open space earlier, yeah, a lot of it is quality where it's at. I consider open space to be something that residential neighborhood should be able to openly use. But if it's all tucked away into the corners or not usable, then it's not really quality open space for the amount of residents that they're trying to put into the development.
CJ, can you bring up the open space notes from your staff report where you mentioned what complies?
That it wasn't on the list. And.
What is the citation you were referring to?
The
First page.
1830.090 common open space requirements.
I'm
and
really having a hard time hearing everybody tonight. So you must have
SPC
adjusted
staff
the sound.
report on Pines Tamarack. There's item 11 to 12, and then it goes into open space. It just says that your notes say that it complies. The applicant proposes 9.09 acres of private common open space, 44.1% of the gross site area. That section in your, it says staff report. Am I at the right one? The 9 acres, the increase over the current 5.05 acres.
Well, and we took a very literal review of this, that how this was presented on what is currently approved versus what's in front of you this evening.
Mhm.
And in what was reviewed and is currently approved, in going back and reading that old staff report from 2019, that wasn't part of that staff report, the discussion about the easements or how that's impacted this. So you really, as much as you don't like the apples you have, this is a comparison of apple to apple. You know, from the current approval to now. I said it's not a good apple,
But they're
but
different, yeah, they're different apples one doesn't like as much. That's,
well, but in terms of how, and Mr. Hauk even said that, in terms of how they did the math, how they looked at this.
yeah, they
They
took
are-
gross area minus minus lot area plus.
So
road area.
some of your issue is with the current approval, just FYI, because that's what's currently intertwined in that. All
Well,
those easements,
but
the
What
stormwater,
is, what is,
That-
what is quality open space
that
may
is part,
differ in a different neighborhood.
Well, yeah, because I think that's true, but I also think that density does play a role in the quality that of the surrounding area, like.
So just to kind of play devil's advocate here, because it almost sounds like we have an expectation that it should be more like suburban residential, but it's zoned PUD, which allows up to 2 per acre. I mean, you're not gonna get more green space at 2 dwelling units per acre than what we're seeing here. So I'm within the current zoning. I don't know how one could expect it to be much more than what we've been given in terms of open space and the like. So that's within the, the allowable parameters of that zoning. Like I said, I don't know how we could like it anymore. I don't know how we could like the apples any more than what we have here. And, be.
And
in
every
compliance.
project doesn't have to have the maximum density in it. Let me ask the staff, is it proper for the commission to consider the consistency of this project with general welfare of the community, harmony with the neighborhood, and similar factors?
I'm sorry, I'm distracted by
All right.
another conversation. So you're asking about considering what again, sir?
The general welfare of the community, harmony of this with the neighborhood, or other subjective factors. If it technically comply, if they come back and show that it is 15%, I think the language clearly says we can judge the quality of the open space. Is there other places? Are we entitled in other areas with respect to the layout of the planned layout as a whole? Use our judgment, is this good for the community? Is it desirable for the neighborhood?
Some of that terminology is determined at the time the PUD zone is established. In terms of,
Well, that's as to use, and I'm saying it's not.
well,
just
no, and
use.
I'm trying to get to the code section. Hang on for me. Yeah, the purpose of a PUD is to, when you're establishing a PUD, is to provide more flexibility and latitude of design. To provide a greater variety of principal and accessory uses in the development or redevelopment of lands. To meet technological changes and concepts, and to encourage initiative. And more efficient allocation and create development of parks, recreation area, and open space. And then where districts are established, that's pretty broad.
Continue to read down, take it to the purpose statement.
Are you looking at
I
the,
was reading from the purpose statement.
Wow,
Are you reading
yeah, that's the policy.
17.40.010?
That's subdivision. I'm in PUD.
that's 18.30.010.
You know, what's the purpose of a PUD? Is there an? And that's where we look at establishing, the PUD zone. And that zone district has been established that yes, this is a PUD. And your maximum density is 2 dwellings per acre, which gets you to a total of 41 possible under that zone.
Yes, but there's different ways one can do it. It's a question is it appropriate for us to make a judgment on the character of the development?
So that would be 18.30.090. There is a list there. And that's some of what you've been talking about previously, where no open space may be accepted as common open space under the provisions of this chapter unless its character and quality have been approved by the planning commission. A, the size and character of the dwellings to be constructed within the planned unit development. B, the character of the surrounding development. C, the topography and existing amenities of the open space, including existing trees, ground cover, and other natural features. D, the manner in which the open area is to be improved and maintained for recreational or amenity purposes. E, the existence of public parks or other public recreational facilities in the vicinity. F, the relationship of the area in open space to the number of dwelling units. And then G, the last item, open space requirement determined by gross land acreage.
That's not the last of them. There's another couple sentences.
Okay, and when we are at,
After the table, it continues.
when we are at 21.1 to 40 acres, we're into 15% open space being required in a PUD. And then at the end, you've mentioned this before, sir. Open space requirements shall not include roadways, associated drainage, utility easements, and other infrastructure areas incidental to the project unless a specific public good can be demonstrated which benefits the community at large. Open space may include parkland dedication areas, trail networks, and other public/private recreational areas and or other facilities as determined by the Woodland Park City Council.
So I guess maybe to summarize, it sounds like we don't feel like we've been provided enough information for the planning commission to make the acceptance to access this common open space. Is that a fair capture of your concern? And if so, would the appropriate thing to do to be allow them time to provide sufficient material for that review?
If that's the view of the commission, it would be useful to come back and look at it. If there's a majority of the commission that says it's fine as it is now, then that's appropriate as well.
Be perfectly honest, I could go either way on that. I could take more information if it helped others, and I could make a vote today if I had to. I don't know, speaking for myself, not for others.
I mean, I have issues not only with the open space, but also the density and the harmony with surrounding areas. Like, yes, we can go up to 2 per acre, but that doesn't necessarily mean that that's what we recommend or wish to approve for the city to vote on. So those are my 2 major concerns that I would consider separate.
Mr. Jones still can speak if he wishes.
No, I agree. I think again, I'll go back to at least the open space, and I think Karen read it. The mission of our, what we're chartered to do is to understand the quality of that open space and the characteristic of it. So I think we need to see that.
Based on what I just heard from my fellow commissioners, I think the major concern today, and excuse me, Cole, I'm going to exclude one of your comments on harmony. This is primarily the calculation and the requirements for open space for this project. That being said, I will move that we table or continue this hearing and not make a decision until we have additional information provided to us, worked out by the staff and the applicant that addresses the calculation of the open space, and continue it to the second meeting in April.
To April 25th.
Yes.
Hey, do you want to shorten the motion that we continue to April 25th?
Yes.
They've heard your other comments.
Okay.
And I think other members want to understand the character of it as well as not just the numerical quantity of it.
Yes, that's as well. I'd love to see them come back with some trail drawings as well to see that are commit to and then, or I don't know. Well, we need a second. Also,
Who was that?
Don DeZelm seconds.
Can we discuss a little bit further? Just before we vote on that one, there's this other topic of the density and the type of lots and houses and stuff and the harmony with the other neighborhoods. So this has already been approved at the previous density. So they're asking for an increase of the number of units and a slight change in the dwelling units per acre. Because of the acreage, it was 1 point something, now it's 1.89. So it's still below 2, but so it was a smaller homes, smaller area, building size, I guess. What I could see, it was like 3,600 square feet of buildable space allotted on the lots, and now it dropped by a few hundred feet in the 3,000 square foot buildable space that they allocated. So it's not changing a lot, and it right, wrong, or indifferent, whoever was here in these seats before approved this for this location in one instance, right? Which was 20 some, or now it's got 14 more units, so it's 25, I guess, before.
I mean, I understand. that.
Okay.
I think my comment is also that, the standard American family is 4 people. That's an additional 13 houses. That's an additional 50 people.
Yep. So
In that
that
subdivision.
to me is the discussion topic, is the change,
Yes.
and I'd like to maybe have that discussion.
I think someone made the comment that open space and density are related. How that open space is looked at.
So I think to give him adequate time, we should talk a little bit about the change in the density, the increase in the population in that space, and whether that's appropriate. And whether we all feel that that's a good use of that as well. So I don't want to make the motion, vote on it, and close the discussion without some further discussion of that portion of the change, to make sure we're in agreement on that.
Well,
We've got a motion, we sort of run out of discussion on the motion.
what I was gonna say with the motion to continue, the applicant brings back the requested information at the April 25th meeting. And at that point, once you have that information, then you pick up and continue the rest of your discussions on the project.
Okay,
to
and just a
get to
question
this-
for staff. What's the situation on this extension of the plat, I guess, that was approved, that expires in July 2024?
For this project?
Yeah, if we just approve the amendment, that automatically renews it. Is that, they're not asking for an extension to the existing plat, they're asking for this amendment to the plat, right?
Correct. And we have consistently said, so long as somebody comes in with an extension request prior to the expiration date, even though, so let's say they turn in an application in June, and it expires before it gets to city council for decision, that still counts. It's not like
There's no
it's,
value in approving an extension without approving the amendment, correct?
They don't want an extension of
They
the
ju-
one anyway.
yeah, yeah.
So we're timely on the.
They want approval of the amendment, I understand.
yeah, and you don't have an extension request in front of you.
Okay, that's what I
So
thought.
they would
I just,
need to.
that was in
apply
the
for that.
report, I was reading it, I thought, I don't see this asking for an extension, so just the amendment.
Let's not continue it to August, then they need it.
Perfect.
Let's not.
Okay, I'm done. I'm ready to vote on the motion now.
Okay, if nothing else, then we have a vote on the motion.
Okay, so it was a motion to continue the public or continue technically continue the public hearing until April 25th. And you were asking for additional information from the applicant related to character and quantity, quality of the open space. So you're looking for some data associated.
Or other
with it.
items if they think it would be helpful to it.
Okay,
To be specific, I see easements, drainage,
right.
all that very clearly where those are on the plot, but I don't
Okay.
see where there's any usable trails and
Maximum setback
Others.
projections.
Specifically so that we can execute our responsibility under 1830-090.
Okay. So with that, Ken Kennedy,
yes.
Larry Larson,
Yes.
Don Hoyne,
Yes.
Cole Middleton,
Yes.
Lee Brown,
Yes,
and Don DeZellem,
Yes.
don't forget George.
and George Jones.
Yes.
Passes unanimously. So with that, I want to take a moment to remind the commissioners that this is an open public hearing. So if somebody wants to chat with you in the grocery store about this project,
Have them call the staff.
please politely decline and ask them to come to the April 25th meeting and call staff. We're happy to, we can chat with them. But otherwise, if they have other concerns, they're welcome to come and observe. But technically, the chair has closed the public comment portion of the hearing. So there is that nuance also. So also no discussion amongst yourselves, please. But otherwise, April 25th, you'll be picking this matter back up. And right now, this is the only thing on that agenda.
May have some time for some code review.
We'll see where we get with that. I turned around today and my workload like quadrupled.
Right, well, are there any reports?
I just wanted to ask, who here on the commission, might have attended the Braver Angels work session with, city council last week? Mr. Hoyne? Anybody else? Larry?
I failed to make it there. I did tell them I was coming, but I missed it.
Anybody else?
My
attend?
apologies for whoever bought the food.
Yeah, I did. George,
Did you?
Don, you were there.
Perfect. Any comments, feedback? I would have liked to have watched some of that, but I was got caught up in a different item that was time sensitive. Thoughts, feedback, worthwhile?
Yeah, it was good. I think as I've been a trained facilitator, so a lot of that was rote, kind of material, but it's good for everybody here. I think the exercises were solid, and yeah.
What I learned from the workshop session was that you should really work hard to try to find areas of agreement when you disagree with somebody. And see if you can narrow down to just the points that need to your both attention. So I thought it was very helpful.
Nice. I was bummed I couldn't listen, so it's nice hearing just some feedback, so I get a little bit of idea of kind of what they were talking about. So with that, no, I don't have any other reports or comments. We did hire a new code compliance specialist. At this point, we anticipate him starting in early May. So pretty excited. When we get closer, I'll provide some more details. So right now, fingers crossed that he doesn't change his mind.
Someone doesn't steal them away.
I've had that happen. So that's where we are this evening. So thank you very much for your time and attention.
Do we have a first meeting in April scheduled?
I'm not sure. I don't have any development cases for you. If we did, that's potentially code work. But we're at a point where it's stuff I need to really dive into and take it a look at. We've picked off kind of going through all the low hanging fruit. We're really into that administration chapter that needs quite a bit of work. And I just have not had the time to really dive into that to get you guys meaningful product back. So that's a lot of the stall is just staff capacity. So thank you for your grace.
Being no other items. Meeting adjourned.
It's 8:46 PM.